Hi, everybody. Don't see anybody joining yet, but this is Tony Zampiello. We're here to do our Instagram Live. Got a few people joining now. We're just setting up, so give us a minute. Bringing on our guest. There we go. There he is. There, you're sideways, Eric.
Am I sideways? All right, we'll go back this way. See if this thing will cooperate for us. This way.
Yeah, you look pretty good there now.
There we go.
So we're still waiting for a few people to join us. There we go. We've got CityWorks on. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started because we know you guys are all busy. If you've been following these Instagram Lives, this is our first Instagram Live of 2022. We've been doing a series on our basin, water conditions, how the basin works, and other things. And today, I'm Tony Zampiello. I'm the executive officer for the main San Gabriel Basin Watermaster. And today we're going to have another one of our partners. You know, last month we had Upper District and the other responsible agency, Three Valleys Municipal Water District, on to talk about how we get imported water into the basin. And today we're going to have the LA County Public Works. We've got Eric Batman here. I'll do a little introduction for him in a minute, but I just wanted to talk a little bit to kind of set things up that, you know, the main purpose of these is for us to not only get information out there, but kind of get a feel for the people that are following us, and how we might best answer any questions you all have. So I encourage you as we go through. Most of you know that I'm a little challenged in trying to do multitasking, but you know, as you join, you can comment, you can ask questions, but tell us kind of where you're from too. So as I'm trying to read some of the questions, we can find out what communities are represented. You know, so anyway, to go ahead and talk about, we've talked about supplying 80% of the water to the 1.5 million people that live in the San Gabriel Valley. And really, you know, of that real 80% is really our local water we capture. And the county's one of a huge partner with us. You know, we manage how it's extracted, how the storage is handled. One of our affiliate agencies actually has the licenses to allow the county to divert the water and store it. But we thought what might be interesting, because we kind of had an interesting late November, December, almost, you know, January kind of started off to a real kick locally. We had some good storms, but things have settled down a little bit. We thought we'd have Eric on to talk a little bit about how we store the water and spread it in the basin and kind of what his agency does. And so, you know, before we go into that, we did have some good news. We're still in a drought in California. That's not the good news. And the governor is still asking for a voluntary 15% reduction. That's not a good news. But our allocation of state imported water has gone from 0 to 15% because of some of the early storms that we got in the Sierra. But we need that to keep going. And so, as I say, go ahead as you go through, We've got a lot of people. A lot of people that are. We've got Anna Valdez Mata. I want to say hi to you from Cavina. Joel ZZY _23 is with us. Tell us about yourselves, and I'll try and pick it up and talk a little bit about what areas you guys are from. So anyway, Eric is a senior civil engineer. He works for the LA County Public Works. He and his agency do a lot of things that help us put the water in the ground, but they also do the measurement. They also do flood control for us along the San Gabriel River and all of the flood control channels that you see in our area. And so they really have to have a good handle on how to plan for storms, how to fit their projects in between all of that stuff. And then they also measure the local precipitation. So with that, I think I've covered most of the intro. Again, I'm going to let Eric, as my co-host, kind of add to whatever his resume is, and talk a little bit to us about what they do, and see if we don't. I'm going to try and monitor some questions and see if we can get some questions from the group. Go ahead, Eric.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Eric Batman. I'm with LA County Public Works. LA County is a fairly large county. We've got over 4,700 square miles of area, and it includes, densely populated areas like Santa Monica, downtown Los Angeles, but also more rural areas like High Vista and Gorman, and even parts of Azusa, as well as, even national forests like Angeles National Forest and the Santa Monica Mountain area. So it's quite a diverse county in and of itself. And so here at Public Works, one of our main focuses is on water, in terms of both, number one, providing flood protection, but also capturing that water. I think we realized early on the importance of providing both. I kind of work on the flood control side here at LA County Public Works. LA County Flood Control District was formed back in 1915, and with that, we recognize, the two-prong approach, if you will, in terms of not just providing protection, but also capturing that water. So we do have quite a vast amount of infrastructure that allows us to do that, from dams and the associated reservoirs to channels, spreading grounds, and even down along the coast seawater barriers. So it's quite a diverse set of assets that we have that allow us to perform that. But in addition to that, Public Works itself has additional things that we're in charge of, including transportation with roads and bridges. We even have some aviation, some airports, waste management, and other municipal services that we're involved with. So definitely have a lot to keep us busy, a lot of different interesting things on our plate.
So the county does do a lot of things, and a lot, even though I deal with you guys almost on a daily basis, I forget sometimes how wide reaching your area is. I mean, you're up in the desert, you're all the way up to the Santa Clarita Valley and beyond. But let's focus a little bit on the San Gabriel River watershed, and where we kind of stand. We know we're not out of the woods. January's been, in my mind, a little disappointing, but having been around for quite a few years, I know that we've had rains in March and April that have bailed us out before, but we still got February to go. But kind of where do we stand with those recent storms, and what did that do for us up in the canyon and along the river?
Yeah, so maybe just a quick recap for the storm season. So for us, we kind of identify the storm season as that period between October through the winter until the following spring in April of each year. And so for this past year, in October, we did get a little bit of rain. We got a little bit above average rainfall, but November was unfortunately very dry. I don't think we got much at all. And then December arrived, and December was quite robust in terms of the amount of rainfall. Downtown LA, we got about 9.5 inches of rainfall. And on average, we get about 2.6 inches. So over 3 times average for downtown LA. And then taking a look at the records, you know, we've got records going back 150 years for downtown LA. And this past December ranked in the top 5 in terms of the amount of rain that we received downtown. And even as you kind of look across the San Gabriel Valley, over at, say, Puddingstone Dam, you know, we got 7 inches of rain, which is about 250% of average. And then up at San Gabriel Dam, up in the mountains, you know, we got over 17.6 inches of rain, which again is over 3 times the amount we normally get in December alone. But as we're all aware, and as you mentioned, Tony, you know, we can't just rely on a single month for the entire storm season. For downtown LA, we're still only about 2/3 of our annual average, and that's pretty consistent across the board. We've received about between half and 2/3. So we're not even though December was quite wet, we had a lot of rain, we're still not even at average yet. So we're still hoping. Unfortunately, January was definitely disappointing, to say the least. Normally January is one of our wetter months, and then February is normally our wettest month, but it's looking like a fairly slow start. Still holding out hope, maybe, you know, a few weeks from now, but in the near forecast, nothing really in the horizon. But we're still hoping for February that we'll continue to get some rains, and then into March and even April.
So, you know, we've as I've kind of walked through all this series with folks, yeah, for me, it's easier to visualize things than to just look at numbers. So when you talk in gallons, you know, 1 billion gallons is a lot, but people can't visualize that. And so I've explained before that we really, to crunch the numbers down to a manageable amount, when we look at total volumes of water used in the basin or water spread, we use the term acre foot. You know, an acre foot is basically a football field, end zone to end zone, 1 foot deep. For me, that's easy to visualize. You know, Eric, where are we at as far as the storage that we want? We like to have in the spring to put in the ground in the 3 reservoirs up there. Where do we stand there? And kind of, if you could walk through kind of where we are volume wise, as far as, are we half full? Are we still empty up there? And kind of do it in acre feet, I think would be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. So overall, especially so we got the 3 dams that are in the San Gabriel Canyon. We have Morris Dam, and then the next one up the canyon is San Gabriel Dam. And then way on the West Fork, we have Cogswell Dam. And we actually started off empty for both of those facilities this year, because we do have a clean out project, and that project will continue over this upcoming summer. But where we currently are is we're about half full in those facilities. So we went from empty to about half full, which is really saying a lot. So we're happy to see that water come in, and we will be looking to move that water out later this spring to allow us to continue to restore that capacity in those dams. But even though we had these significant rainfalls in December, that it didn't completely fill up the reservoirs. We still have room in those reservoirs, so we're still hoping, you know, for additional rainfall. But we're about half full in those 2 facilities, and so that's kind of where we're at. In terms of county-wide, we've captured about just under 45,000 acre feet since October 1st at all of our groundwater recharge facilities. And of that amount, about 15,000 has been in the main San Gabriel basin. So we've got kind of 3 areas that we split it up: the main San Gabriel basin or San Gabriel Valley, the central basin, and then over in the San Fernando Valley. So we've got about, again, 15,000 acre feet that has been captured at the spreading grounds. Again, that does not include any water that's currently at our reservoirs. So that's just kind of a recap on that. In terms of December, you know, we captured about, of the 44 or 45,000 total, about 40,000 of it came in December. And so it was definitely a very good month, and it's more than 2.5 the amount that we normally capture in that month. So we got the rain, we were able to capture the runoff, and at this point we're just looking for more rain, if at all possible, between now and the end of storm season, which again normally runs through mid-April.
So I see that baby Noelle's 75 has joined. She actually is from out of state. She's one of my biggest fans. So shout out to her. But we're not getting a lot of questions from everybody. So I'm gonna ask you a question. You know, we know that you guys manage multiple. You just stated that, and it can't be stated enough. You manage multiple watersheds, and there are differences between all three of them. I know that for us, you know, historically, to maintain the groundwater levels, I think our average spread over long-term average of 30, 40 years has been about 110,000 acre feet a year. So when you talk in terms of 45,000, and then we're still extracting water at the same time, it's kind of difficult to feel that we're gaining ground. So it kind of matches where we are with the precipitation, but there are other things that you guys have to do to maintain not only flood protection, but just to maintain the dams up in the canyon. And I know that there have been, we've talked about it before, about the wildfires and their impacts on the watershed. So is there anything planned for this year? What maintenance do you guys have to do after one of these? We had these fires, and then we had quite a bit of rain there early on that may have moved some sediment down. We know there's sediment down there. What does the county do? What kind of hoops do you have to jump through to maintain those reservoirs?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of hoops, and I think you hit on one of the key items, and that being the fire. We always see, or typically see, after a watershed burns, that quite a large amount of material will be washed into the reservoirs, and so that's something that we do have to manage on an ongoing basis, but especially after fire events. And normally our approach is to to pass the water through and then just manage the sediment separately from that. So first step is to try to move the water through, but then you have to essentially scoop out all that material and then put it somewhere. And so along each step of the way, there are regulatory requirements, environmental agencies that monitor our activities, and we work very closely with them because there are there's a lot of different aquatic fish and different plants and things like that we want to make sure we minimize any impacts to those. And so it does require quite a bit of coordination and monitoring and working together with the regulatory folks to make sure we're able to accomplish what we need to do, which is to restore that capacity at those facilities, but also do it in a way that, again, minimizes impact to the downstream communities. So yeah, quite a bit of activities this summer. Again, we will have projects going on at both San Gabriel Dam and Cogswell Dam in terms of removing sediment. We do have sediment placement sites that are not too far away, still in the Angeles Forest, where we'll be trucking that material to and depositing that material. I think also a little bit to the west at Santa Anita Dam, we're seeing quite a bit of material come in, and we also are going to have a project initiated this summer for that one. But that one was also a result of the Bobcat fire. So Bobcat fire was definitely a large fire, burned a lot of it in the Angeles National Forest, and affected the watersheds associated with some of our largest facilities. So we've got, for both San Gabriel and Cogswell, multi-year projects planned out just to manage that sediment and restore the capacity, which again provides both the flood protection but also stormwater capture, and both are very important for the residents of Los Angeles County.
Yeah, and I think that being involved in the process, I think that when you guys talk about stakeholders, a big part of your stakeholder group are local groups and local residents. And I know that there are times where there are inconveniences that are caused by these projects, and that you guys have to do a lot of PR work ahead, during, and after a project. The interesting thing to me, Eric, is that so many of these activities, they're not invisible, but they're done with all of these other truck routes and everything taken into account. And I don't think most people understand that even without the fires, the San Gabriels are among the most erosive. They're amongst the most erosive mountain range in the world. So they're always crumbling, if you will, on their own. But we did. Kathy _ Rob had a question, and I think we've kind of answered it in a broad sense, but maybe you and I can put a finer point on it. She's asking, when it rains, how much rain do we capture, and where is it kept? And so I'm gonna start by giving just the basic concept of how we try and capture rain and snow, and then maybe you can put a finer point on it, because you guys operate so many you know, of your facilities. But the really what happens, what we try to do, if you've ever been up in Highway 39, there are reservoirs up there. Certain times of the year you'll see them empty, certain times of the year you'll see them full. What we try to do is kind of capture the winter flows, hold them up there, and then spread them down below. And Eric, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the role that Santa Fe and the river kind of play in that role.
Sure. So yeah, kind of focusing on the San Gabriel River side of things. Again, as I mentioned, you know, from our perspective, from an operations perspective, we've got, you know, two big goals. Number one, provide, you know, flood protection, and then number two, capture the water. And for most storms, the system, you know, does a really good job of providing flood protection without much of an issue. So we can really focus more on the stormwater capture. So in many cases, for most storms, even like in December, for the most part, our focus was on, let's capture this water. The reservoirs had plenty of capacity. The spreading grounds had plenty of capacity. And so it wasn't so much about overwhelming the system as much as, hey, look at all this great water. Let's capture it. And so we've got, you know, our dams that we operate. And again, we oversee 14 dams throughout LA County. But also the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has 5 dams within LA County that are kind of sprinkled in with our dams. And so we work very closely with the Army Corps, with our operations and their operations. And then in addition to that, we have what are called spreading grounds, which are just essentially dedicated areas that we, you know, divert water out of the channels and put it in. And the geology in on these properties are very conducive for percolating the water down into the groundwater basins. And so these facilities we've had in most cases for many years, some dating back to the 1930s, because early on, I think we recognized the importance of capturing that stormwater runoff. So there's a number of facilities that are sprinkled throughout both the San Gabriel Valley and also the coastal plain, and even in the San Fernando Valley. And they were built for the purpose of diverting water into them, so that the water can then percolate down into the aquifers for storage, and then they can be later pumped for municipal use and things like that. So that's kind of where the water goes and what our objectives are. And we have different ways of diverting water out of the rivers and managing that. And we're always looking systematically, you know, where do we have capacity? Where can we put it? Where are we running out of capacity? And making adjustments essentially in real time as it's raining to try to maximize our stormwater capture. And I would say, especially on the San Gabriel River side, I think overall the system's been developed over, you know, 100 years, so that we're able to capture a very large percentage of the water, where we can, once we capture it, we can put it in the ground. There are areas, the closer you get to the ocean, the geology is such that it's really difficult to get the water into the ground from the ground surface. You can use other methods, but when it's raining, that really the best way to get it in the ground is, put it in a spreading ground, essentially, or, have it percolate in a pervious area. That can even be in the river itself. And so it can be very difficult to try to capture water in areas where you can't do that. But in those areas where we can do that, I think the system has been developed very well to where we capture, greater than typically about 95% of the runoff. We're able to capture and put that in the ground. So I think the system is doing a really good job. But that's not to say we're not always looking to improve it, but as it currently stands, it does a really good job.
That's a great answer. Thanks. Kathy_Rob is asking, is there something that we, her and Rob can do to catch rain? And I'm going to just give 3 small examples. One of the things that the more concrete you have on your property, the less opportunity there is for water to percolate. And then your municipal water districts, if you're from the San Gabriel Valley, you can go on their websites. They'll give you access to rain barrels where you can divert your gutters into these barrels, save water, and then use it to water your outside plants or plants that didn't take advantage of the rain. But one of the things that I have on my property is we had one area in the backyard that had a drainage issue. So we actually put in a dry riverbed and then dug a very deep, like a 6x6 I call it a gallery, and then filled that with rocks. So as it rains, that riverbed will carry that water down, and then it goes into the ground. In the front yard, we did the same thing without the gallery. I think on previous casts, I've shown you kind of what we did with our front yard. But those are just a few ways that you can do that. You just need to remember, if it's a hard surface, including your roof, it's not going to percolate. It's going to run somewhere else. So the idea is to capture it. We had another question, which I thought was very interesting. _ AP Hill _ is asking, and I know we're running up against time, so maybe we'll answer this question and then close things out. But they're asking, how do you develop a rain forecast, and what resources do you pull from, Eric?
Yeah, so we have 2 main sources for forecasting, weather forecasting. One is from the National Weather Service, and that's a service that's free, and they have a website, and they offer a lot of good information. There's a lot of tools that are available. We subscribe to from the National Weather Service. They'll give us updates twice a day. Now, on weeks like this week, the updates aren't real exciting. There's not a whole lot to talk about. But we'll still check on that. And then also we have a weather consultant that also helps us out, that gives us kind of a second opinion and can at times refine some of the details of the forecast specific to our area, or even specific to certain areas within LA County. So those are the 2 main resources that we use to get the forecast. And I would say the forecast is very important for preparation. To try to manage different things and make decisions and things like that. And honestly, over the years, the forecasting has gotten a lot better. If years ago, you were lucky to get an accurate forecast when it came to rain within 24 to 48 hours. But it seems like in recent years, they've gotten a lot better at predicting the amount and the timing, even multiple days out, which is extremely helpful. So we rely on those 2 sources of information and making decisions for upcoming rain events.
So we got a really great question. I have to answer this one. It's H2O Blossom is asking, is 95% capture typical or above average? And I'm going to give my opinion, and then Eric, you can shoot me down if you like. But you know, I would say all watersheds are different, and I would say that that's pretty. I would say it's probably above average, but that's mainly because of the physical attributes of the San Gabriel River. We call it a river, but it's really a dry riverbed, and a good portion of it is unlined. So remember, I talked about people's property and having hard surfaces where water runs off. You look at the LA River, for many reasons, it was very confined. When it was designed, it was confined, and it's a lot of concrete channel. So I would say that, you know, it's not typical on the LA River. A lot of that water goes straight out to the ocean, but there's a good reason. You know, historically, that river didn't just meet the ocean in one place. You know, if you read some of the history of Los Angeles before the flood control district and the Army Corps showed up, that river would meet the ocean anywhere along a 14-mile strip. So you could imagine trying to develop a city as it was growing and accommodate it and just let it run free. That's not to say the San Gabriel does. It's combined by a levee. But anyway, Eric, I don't know if you wanted to add to that or yell at me for stealing your thunder, or how you want to do that.
No, I'd say that's accurate. I would say many years it's near 100%, but you know, once or twice a decade we'll get a storm season where we get just a lot of water. You know, as we're finding even this year, it's tough to predict how much we're going to get from one month to the next. The same is true for the average for the entire year. The average is what it is, but normally, you know, 7 out of 10 years we're well below that average amount. But then those 3 out of the 10 years we're so high above, it brings it up to where it is overall. But so, you know, those 1 or 2 events out of a decade, we'll get so much water that there's just no place to put it, and that's where we'll see water that goes past our facilities. But in those 8 out of the 10 years, we capture essentially all of it. So it's kind of a, you know, and it averages out to about 95%. So that's just, maybe that gives a little bit more background as to how we get that number. But that's kind of the reality of the way the system's set up.
Well, I always like, you know me, I like to tell corny stories. And one of the stories I always tell is the winter of 2005. I remember going down to the Central Basin to a meeting, going down the 605. And most people don't notice, but gradually the levee becomes higher than the freeway. And that particular winter was we had crazy action on the San Gabriel, and the levee was actually almost topping. It was in total flood control mode. And one of the people, when I got to the meeting, said, "We're wasting all this water. You know, we're losing all this water." And I said, "Well, but you still have your house." You know, a lot of people forget it's a flood control system as well. And so we do have the ability. I say we because I feel like I'm an adopted employee of the county, but you know, there has to be a function for flood control and saving life and property. And when you see what happened prior to the county and the flood control district existing, and then post, you know that they've done a good job over the years working with what they have to really save us when there is heavy floods. And so anyway, Eric, I'm going to let you, since I didn't warn you that I never stick to the script on these things, let you add anything you'd like to add before we close out.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. Thank you for having me on today. I think it's important to be able to get out the message about what we do. I think a lot of times we just focus on what we do, and things work out. You know, flood protection is there and we're capturing that water, but a lot of times we do it in such a way that it doesn't get a whole lot of attention, which can be good and bad. You know, we like the good attention, maybe not so much the bad attention, but I do appreciate the opportunity to come on today and just kind of talk about what we do. I know myself and my staff are really passionate about what we do here, and look forward each and every day to performing our different activities. So just want to say thank you for that, and appreciate, again, the opportunity.
So with that, I encourage you to obviously, if you're on this Instagram live, you know what our handle is on Instagram, but encourage your friends to follow us on Instagram live, on the Watermaster Instagram account, and they'll get updates as to when we do the next. We're going to continue this series into this year. Hopefully, our next, when we meet next, we'll be able to say that we've gained some ground with local rain, and that the state's in better shape. And so, if you want to learn more about Watermaster, you can go to www.watermaster.org, or you can go and see our campaign to educate folks about the basin. It is at www.thewatersthatconnectus.com. So I have my directors here telling me, so as an old timer, these comms and orgs, I get confused sometimes. So with that, I want to thank everybody who joined. Thank you for the great questions, and hopefully, we'll continue to do these and continue to bring people up to speed on how their water's going. Everybody, please stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.